You've all seen the news by multiple sources about Nokia Mobile abandoning the flagship segment. So let's break down what this means and what we can expect in the future to help us understand Nokia Mobile's strategy. Spoiler alert, this doesn't mean that we will only get low-end and budget-friendly smartphones. The source of this news is a chat that Android Authority had with Adam Ferguson, who's the head of product marketing at HMD. But it's very important to understand exactly what was said as opposed to just reading the headlines. Adam said that making an $800 smartphone doesn't make any sense for the brand at the moment. And I find him saying $800 specifically quite interesting. If we were to look at Nokia phones over the past 5 years under HMD's stewardship, only one device was actually close to the $800 mark. And that would be the Nokia 8 Sirocco, which was priced in many markets around the $700, $800 mark. The Nokia 9 PureView, which is the most recent flagship, was actually priced closer to the $600 mark worldwide. And even after adding the taxes in Europe, that's closer to $700. As for the first flagship that was released by the brand, the Nokia 8, that was supposed to be an affordable flagship and it was priced around the $500 mark. And understanding this is very important. It could still mean producing premium products that are just priced lower than $800. That leaves a lot of wiggle room, and when we recently asked HMD about their plans for the X series devices, they told us that they have a couple of devices planned for this year. So, even though the bread and butter of the brand will continue to be devices that are priced below $300, we can definitely expect to see some mid-rangers, such as the Nokia X20, which was priced around $400 plus. I also want to highlight something else that Adam mentioned in that chat that is also quite important. He said that HMD isn't interested in getting into a massive spec war against other players, and that they would rather stand for something very different. What does this mean? It just means that HMD isn't going to be rushing to beat other players in the numbers game, which leaves killer flagship devices like the old OnePlus devices, as well as phones from Poco and Realme, out of the question. But it also means that if HMD were to try a more premium handset, they're going to be trying to do something that is quite different. And I think the Nokia XR20 is a perfect example of that approach. It's a very unique and interesting device that was priced close to $600, and honestly doesn't have any direct competitors when it comes to the advantages that it offers. This might be disappointing for some of you, understandably. I think we all would love to see a great successor to the Lumia flagships of old, especially when it comes to innovation. But from a business perspective, this makes sense as it understands the current limitations of the brand. Things such as economies of scale, which many brands utilize by working with sister companies to mass order components, to get these components for as little money as possible, is not something that HMD can currently benefit from. And this means that beating the Chinese OEMs at their own game is pretty much impossible right now. As a result, HMD has to focus on other differentiating factors. And we can see this approach very clearly since last year. The focus is on design, durability, sustainability, and software support, as well as nailing the basics across the whole portfolio. And their marketing now talks about the tangible benefits of technology rather than trying to showboat the numbers. From what we can tell so far, this new strategy has been a success. HMD has actually been profitable for a while now, despite all the doom and gloom that's coming from within the tech enthusiast bubble. So why not try a proper flagship? Something that would compete against the iPhones and the Galaxies of the world. It's because if you look at the sales numbers across the whole industry, the flagship segment is the most difficult segment to crack. Pretty much very high risk, high reward if you manage to succeed, but also a very expensive mistake if you don't. Unfortunately, the most important aspect to crack this segment has absolutely nothing to do with the specs on paper. It's all about mindshare and brand image. Apple is by far the biggest player in this segment, followed by Samsung in a very distant second place. So if they want to succeed on a massive scale, they will need to sway away buyers from these two brands. This can only happen by creating a truly extraordinary device, accompanied with a marketing budget the size of a small planet. Both are not possible right now, and we don't have to go that far back to see how Lumia devices, despite Nokia having a bit of both back then, still struggled to make an impact on the flagship segment in terms of sales. But what about the future? You guys know I'm a super optimistic person, and I'm hoping that as the brand continues to be profitable, they are more willing to take risks and eventually create a true flagship. And this can only happen if they start building from as soon as possible, by hiring the right people, expanding their R&D, and working behind the scenes in order to make sure that they can create something special. By the way, all these statements from HMD don't dismiss a successor to the Nokia 8.3, although if I had to guess, I would say that is definitely not a priority right now. Anyway, let's see what happens. If you enjoyed this video, do check out my nostalgia series where I cover some of the most iconic Nokia devices of the past, or check out what I had to say about the new Nokia G21.